Welcome to This Birding Life, a podcast for birdwatchers everywhere. I'm your host, Bill Thomspon III. This Birding Life is hosted by Birdwatchers Digest, the magazine for birders who like to read and readers who like to bird. Check out our rich array of engaging print and digital content, videos, podcasts, e-newsletters, books and booklets, and even events at birdwatchersdigest.com. Our generous sponsors help to make every episode of This Birding Life possible. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics, makers of fine binoculars and spotting scopes, have supported this podcast for many years. They are as committed to the birding community and to bird conservation as they are to making world-class optics. Learn more about Zeiss at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. And with this episode, we welcome a new sponsor to This Birding Life, the American Birding Expo. The American Birding Expo is an annual event that brings together the worldwide birding marketplace and the community of North American birders. It's the most incredible shopping experience available for North American birdwatchers, and you should mark your calendar to attend the 2017 American Birding Expo, September 29 through October 1 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Learn more about this one-of-a-kind event at birdingexpo.com. Now let's get this show on the road. This is episode 64, Voices of India. In early December 2016, I was one of a large contingent of international delegates invited to take part in the second annual Uttar Pradesh Bird Festival in northeastern India. The festival was aimed at promoting the birding opportunities in India and the state of Uttar Pradesh to both birders within India and to those around the world. International delegates, among them birders, journalists, tourism professionals, and ornithologists, came from all over the world, from countries including England, Greece, Russia, the Philippines, Uganda, Israel, Spain, and elsewhere. A large number of avid Indian birders and ornithologists were also invited, so the festival and the birding trip that followed had a pleasingly diverse international vibe. India is a place that impacts you on all of your senses. It's one of the most populous countries on earth, so the sheer number of humans everywhere you look is profoundly impressive. The sights, sounds, and smells associated with such a mass of humanity are omnipresent, as was the welcoming, friendly nature of the Indian people. During my visit, my preconceived notions about India being hot and sunny were erased. It was the cold and foggy season there, and we all spent many hours in down jackets, scarves, hats, and gloves while we were out in the field birding. The birding was fantastic, despite being made more difficult by the fog and cold. Nearly every bird we encountered was something new to me, since I had never visited this part of the Asian subcontinent. Some of the more memorable sightings included families of Sarus cranes, brown hawk owl, brown rock chat, great goldenback, Indian peafowl, which is basically a wild peacock, painted stork, lesser adjutant, shikra, pheasant-tailed jacana, and stork-billed kingfisher, and coppersmith barbet. I loved that one. We stayed at two locations during the trip, the Chambal River Lodge near Ba, where the festival was held, and the Jagir Lodge near Dudhwa Tiger Reserve, close to the Nepal border. At Chambal, we were housed in individual tents on the lodge grounds, in a setup that was much like a military camp, with a large central tent for meals and a stage nearby for evening presentations. A great deal of planning and preparation had gone into the event. Nearby was the central event grounds, where huge tents were set up for displays of art, a small retail vendor area, and a large area for daytime presentations. Each day we'd rise just after dawn and head over for a hot-cooked breakfast and coffee or chai, followed by a few hours of presentations by delegates. Some of these talks were more general and entertaining in nature, while others were much more scientific and focused on conservation and field research. To give you a taste of this adventure in India, I'll share some of the short interviews and some excerpts from some of the festival presentations, which I recorded during the trip, starting with the festival organizer, Nikhil Devasar. I hope you enjoy these voices from India.
Nikhil Devasar from New Delhi. I am the coordinator for the UP Bird Festival for the government.
So, Nikhil, thank you so much for all your effort to make this happen. It's an unbelievably impressive event. What an undertaking. This is your second year, correct?
Yes, this is my second year. Last year we had the same festival in the same place, and this year we've doubled, or rather tripled, Everything from last year, the guests, the delegates, the talks.
And so you have delegates that have come from many places around the world. What is your goal with bringing all those people here?
We want to just basically promote birding in India. India is not very, very well yet known for birding. And we want to promote Uttar Pradesh for birding again. And right now we have delegates from 26 countries around the world. And we have a delegate from every Indian state over here now.
And who are the attendees who are here?
A lot of birders from Delhi, from Agra, from Kanpur who come for the day. A lot of birders from India who are staying with us. School children from around this place, from Etawah, from Kanpur, from Agra. They come here for workshops during the day.
Okay. So do you find that the festival has been picking up momentum? I mean, are people in the area in Uttar Pradesh, are they talking about it?
Yes, they are, very much in fact. In fact, this place was once known for dacoits and guns and everything, and it's now known for birds.
Well, that's good. That's a good break. And the school kids that are coming here, sort of something that's near and dear to my heart is training the next generation of people to appreciate nature, or even just notice it. Are you finding that it's resonating with the school children?
Yes, they are. In fact, we encourage school children to come and take part in the photo competition, in the drawing competition, and we give prizes. And we encourage bird watching in schools. We've asked the school teachers to open up bird watching clubs in schools now, and we help them coordinate the activities in the club, in the bird club in schools, in the local schools.
So, Nick, how did you get started with bird watching?
I basically like the outdoors. I started like every kid who likes tigers when we started growing up. But in Delhi, there are no tigers.
Right.
So I need to get out of and be with the nature, be with the outdoors. So birds came naturally. So since I was 10, 12, I had birds. I kept birds as pets originally, and then slowly, and since now bird watching seriously for the last 25 years.
And you also have offered tours here to India. Is that correct?
That's correct. I also have a company called Enchanted India, and we do tours throughout the country for bird watching and wildlife watching.
And what do you feel are the top handful of reasons that people come to India for bird watching? What would be some of the iconic birds that they want to see?
One, bird watching here is very easy compared to anywhere else in the world. On a typical 1 week tour in India, you'll see 400 species.
Wow.
So that's one thing. And people are friendly, people are welcoming to their homes, to their, and the great birds we see is, we have birds from every different region. We have the bustard, we have the crab plover, we have the hypocollias, we have a lot of endemic birds. We have the sarus crane right here where you are.
We saw this yesterday.
We have the Indian skimmer here, brown rock chat, which is the endemic.
Right.
So we have over 1,400 birds in India.
Wow. And it's in the mornings here, it's been quite foggy and damp and cool. Most people think of India, they think of hot and dry. This is, for me, it's quite a different scene. Is this a seasonal anomaly, or is it something that happens every time this year?
No, this happens every time this year. And in fact, a lot of people who have not seen India still think we are a land of snake charmers and we live in tree houses.
Well, this is not the case. So I wondered if you would, and I may put this at the end of the podcast, but could you speak in your native tongue and invite people to come to India for bird watching? Could you say that?
Sure. Namaskar, मैं निखिल दिवाकर आप सबको इनविटेशन देता हूँ कि आप अगली बार थर्ड यूपी बर्ड फेस्टिवल में ज़रूर हिस्सा लें. ये चंबल में होएगा, इंडिया में.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you so much for having us, and you've put on a wonderful event here.
Thank you, Bill, for being here. Thanks to all of you that we are having a good time here.
Fantastic. Thank you.
My name's Dave Davenport, and I'm a zoologist and president of EcoQuest Travel.
And where are you from, Dave?
North Carolina.
Okay. So you're here as part of the Uttar Pradesh Bird Festival, and but this isn't your first time in India.
No, I've been in India. I've been working in India for several years now, and we bring clients largely from the United States, but also from Canada and a few European countries to India on wildlife-oriented and birding trips.
And how many years have you been coming here?
This is my 8th year now.
Okay. And what do you find? So obviously you like coming here. So what are some of the things that attract you to India?
Oh, I love India. India is such a unique place. It's so different than anywhere else on the planet. It's got a very unique culture. People are incredibly friendly. The food is fantastic. But what draws us is the wildlife and the birds. It's just a fantastic place. You know, you can take even a bird-focused trip, and you can just rack up this fantastic list of mammals. It's only Africa is the only other place in the world where you can see such diversity of mammals, as well as an incredible list of birds. And like Africa, a lot of the birds are big and charismatic, and you know, sort of on people's wish lists. And so it's just a great overall place. The whole experience of being in India is great. Architecture is unique. You know, so.
And if someone was listening to this and wanted to think about planning a trip to India, because it's such a big country and there's so much to see, what would be maybe your top couple of places that a bird watcher, person interested in maybe general wildlife watching as well, and combining some culture, perhaps, where would be a couple of places you could suggest that they look?
Sure. Well, most flights from the United States come into Delhi. And then from there, it's an easy ride south to Agra for the Taj Mahal and Fatehpur Sikri, which is some old Mughal ruins on the border with Rajasthan. And then for birders, it's really close to go to Bharatpur, which is a Ramsar site that's full of water birds, and it's a very important Saras crane sanctuary. And then right where we are here in Chambal, the Chambal River is the only protected tributary of the Ganges. And it's got all these really critically endangered riverine birds, several species of terns, great thick-kneed river lapwing, many species that are in, you know, Indian skimmer, many things that are in real trouble in other places find a really important home here. It's also really good for reptiles like gharial, and there's a bunch of endangered turtles here, and it's a pretty decent place. We've never dipped on Ganges river dolphin here.
Oh, nice.
So it's just a really important river system, and all of this can be done within a couple hours of Delhi. And then, of course, you know, most people, tigers are sort of the ubiquitous, you know, must-see, and, you know, you're a long bus ride or a short plane ride to some of the tiger reserves in central India, like Kanha or Bandhavgarh, or if you don't have that kind of time, you're only a short drive from Ranthambore, which is in Rajasthan, which is a fantastic tiger reserve.
So, of all the things that you've seen and done here in India, is there one moment that stands out for you as being really special in your experience that when you've been here guiding?
Well, there's lots of moments. The first time that you are close enough to a rhino, an Indian rhino in Kaziranga, normally you can get very close to this really iconic species. And anytime people see tiger for the first time in the wild, it's kind of this sort of, you can hear people exhale and you wonder whether they're going to breathe back in again. It's just this magical experience. And there's little experiences like that too. I mean, seeing Indian skimmers, you know, skim right next to the boat on the Chambal, you know, as the sun's going down. It's just, you know, it's just that sort of a magical sort of place.
Well, Dave, thanks a lot for sharing some of your insights, and good luck to you as you go. I guess you're going to look for some new spots.
Yeah, going down to Gujarat to see the Asiatic lions in gear, and there's a lot of really endemic birds to that area in the dry, so we're going to check that out for future trips.
Well, thanks a lot and good luck.
Thanks for having me.
Here are some short excerpts from some of the presentations at the festival, starting with ornithologist Pamela Rasmussen, followed by Dominic Cousins, Mike Liu from the Philippines, and the very moving tale of how two Indian birders helped to save a population of Amur falcons.
The mystery bird, the photographs that surfaced of a crake in Great Nicobar, and turned out to be apparently a new species, but still not described. If people have subsequently photographed it there and seen it as well, so something to be done in the future.
Now, if you think that the yellow coloration is a reflection of how much carotenoid the bird has, it's also a reflection of the bird's talent for catching caterpillars. The more caterpillars a bird eats, the brighter its plumage. So a female great tit or blue tit could technically tell how good a father a bird is by how bright the plumage is on the breast. And so this would be a very useful characteristic for any partner to know about. It's very interesting. There's been so much research recently into how birds choose their partners, but we're still unaware of how.
And then a few months later, I received an email congratulating our club for winning an environmental award. I said I did not apply for it, so I ignored it. Then another email came. I ignored it again. I think probably it's a scam asking me to give more money. And then one of our members said, Mike, why are you not answering that email? It's from the World Bank Philippine office, and you won an award. I said, no, we did not apply for any award. He said, no, this contest, you don't apply for it. People recommend you. And it's a national campaign. So we were surprised that just before we reached our second year as a bird club, we were awarded as one of the 10 environmental champion awards in the Philippines by the World Bank Country Office. And so we said,
we were told that the Doyang Reservoir in Wokha district was full of falcons at this time of the year and decided to head there. As we approached Doyang, the first sight that greeted us wasn't live falcons, but bunches of dead ones being taken for sale in the local markets.
Scanning the surroundings, we saw thousands of falcons perched on high-tension wires across the Doyang Valley. And as we finally reached the reservoir, we were amazed to see tens of thousands more. Tearing ourselves away from this astonishing sight, we headed to the nearest village to try and learn about the extent of hunting. On the way, we met many hunters carrying hundreds of live falcons. At lakeside shacks, falcons were being plucked and prepared for a barbecue. When we finally reached Pankti village, there were more horrors in store. Everyone seemed to be involved in the Angor falcon massacre, even the children. Every house we entered seemed to have falcons, alive, dead, or dying.
Speaking with the people of Pankti, the story began to unravel. The falcon hunters were actually fishermen who normally eked out a living by fishing in the Doyang River. But soon after the Doyang Dam was built in the year 2000, the falcons started congregating around the reservoir in huge numbers for reasons we don't fully understand. To the impoverished fishermen, this seemed like a heaven-sent opportunity to make some extra money, and they modified their fishing nets to trap the birds.
Making inquiries, we learned that 70 trapping teams were operating in the area and had deployed about 700 nets near roosting trees. On an average, about 12,000 birds were being captured every day during the peak migratory season. This was clearly not subsistence hunting, but an organized commercial operation supplying other regions of Nagaland too. When we sat down to work out how many falcons were being killed, even our most conservative calculation was alarming. At least 120,000 were being harvested every season from this one area alone. Horrified by what we had seen and learned, I called the senior-most government official in the area to tell him what was going on. We heard that a government order had been issued in 2010 banning the hunts, but clearly no one was enforcing it. It was time to put a stop to this illegal harvest. Upon seeing our photographs the next day, the district commissioner issued a follow-up order and sent it to all appropriate local officials and the headmen of all the surrounding villages. This one had the desired impact, and within days, thanks to the enforcement authorities, village council members and our volunteers, the nets were pulled down. As a result of all the negative publicity, the killing stopped and the falcons were guaranteed safe passage for the rest of the 2012 season. But to us, it was clear that a temporary respite was not enough. Something had to be done to protect the migrating birds in the long term. As a Naga myself, it was not too difficult for me to form a rapport with the local people. I used my powers of persuasion to convince them that the falcon hunts were bringing a bad name to Nagaland. Meanwhile, Ramki was busy setting up a program called Friends of the Amur Falcon.
With small grants from a few donors, we launched eco clubs in several local schools to teach children about nature and conservation. We wanted to get them to think about wildlife in a new way rather than just as food or something to hunt down for fun. We strongly believe that if we could capture the hearts and minds of the children, they would in turn influence the elders.
But the greatest breakthrough came about when the local fishermen decided to give up hunting falcons. Despite the loss of the extra money they made every winter, they banded together to set up an organization called the Amur Falcon Roosting Area Union to protect the birds. This convinced me that change was truly in the air. In a world where conservation success stories are increasingly rare, the campaign to save the Amur falcon has had a positive impact, and we are seeing larger and larger numbers arriving every year.
After 2 days on the festival grounds, we were granted a special side trip to see the Taj Mahal, one of the man-made wonders of the world. Here's some audio from that trip to this incredible castle.
So that is why this is known as a royal gate. The specialty of this point, why I made it to stand over here, between two thin pillars you find very small 11 domes. You look this side. Between two thin pillars you find very small 11 domes on the top. So the 11 domes on the top and 11 back side. So total 22, it is symbolizing that it has taken 22 years to build the Taj Mahal. 1631 it was started and 1653 it was completed. One Mumtaz died there in the Burhanpur at the time of the delivery of the 14th child at the age of 38 years and 9 months. And in her married life of the 19 years she had the 14th delivery. And out of 14 children only the 6 could be survived, 8 could not be survived. This place. And they started building it to 22 years to build the Taj Mahal, right? 1631 to 1653 years means they planned it in 22 years, they finished it in 22 years. Because as per the Persian architect, the number of 22 is holy, right?
This is the inside of the Taj Mahal. This is what it sounds like in a place that's all marble. Look how pretty. Oh my gosh. And out to the river now. Oh, tour guide whistles.
Generally the elder son becomes a king. Sir. Generally the elder son becomes a king. So he killed 3 elder sons and here arrested his own father, then become a king. Then he stopped that one. Now the beautiful garden is being made. So now you come down here, sir, please. I think all have come. All are here. Gilli?
Wow. So we're here at the Chambal River Lodge, and it's the last day of the Uttar Pradesh Bird Festival. Please tell us who you are and where you're from.
Hi, Bill. This is Pooja Sharma. I'm from New Delhi, but I am rooted in the mountains of the Himalaya mountains. And my grandfather used to be a shepherd, so I've quit my job. I used to work with an American bank called Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and I quit my job after 8 years of working, and now I've moved back to becoming a shepherd and a birder again.
Nice. And so what are you shepherding when you're a shepherd?
Sheep? Not really. I'm just kidding.
Well, so you've been birding for how long?
Well, when I was 10, February 1998, I saw my first Siberian cranes in Bharatpur in India, and now they're extinct.
Right.
Yes, but formally I started about 5 years ago, and now I love trekking, I love mountains, as I said earlier, and I love birding. I'm particularly birding in the mountains and sound recording.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think? I mean, what was your impression of this bird festival that's just happened? How, from an insider's perspective, you know, being an Indian birder, what did you think of it, and all these strange people from all over the world coming here?
Wow, actually, it's my second time. I was here last year as well, in 2015. So, it's incredible to meet people like you. I mean, people interested in Indian ornithology, meeting stalwarts from my area, Oriental region, right? It's absolutely incredible. People from other areas like Africa, and this time we had a lot of people from Spain and Greece and Africa, and it was absolutely fascinating to hear their birding stories.
And I think despite the foggy weather, we've had quite good birding. And
yes.
Where will you be heading from here? What's your next birding adventure?
We're going back to Delhi, and then we'd probably go up to...
What were those that just went over?
There was the rose-ring parakeets.
Making a lot of noise.
Yes, always do. So we've got some records of satire tragopans coming up from the mountains, and I'll be heading back to my mountains, really.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Do you have a bird that you consider to be your favorite bird among the Indian birds?
Oh yes, of course. The spectacled finch, Calacanthus batoni.
Ooh.
That's my favorite. My second favorite is orange bullfinch, and both of these are range restricted to the Western Himalayas.
I see.
So these are my favorite birds, actually.
Wonderful.
Yes, I thought I'd get a tattoo of one of the finches, but I haven't gotten around to doing that. So.
Well, maybe you can do that after the festival.
Yes, I know.
We'll come back and see the tattoo next year.
I know, perfect.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's been wonderful meeting everybody here. I'm very impressed with the birders I've met from India, and it's just been a real treat to be here with you all. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Bill. And I must say, Bill played us really incredible guitar last evening, which was absolutely enriching in terms of music. So you Americans out there, you're lucky to have him.
It's thank you. It's the international language.
A talented birder, I must say.
Well, thank you so much.
Right.
After leaving the Chambal River Lodge in the festival grounds, we took an all-day, 8-hour coach ride to the Dudhwa Tiger Reserve region, near the border with Nepal. We stayed for 2 nights at the Jagir Lodge near Dudhwa, and we had many attempts at trying to see tigers. We never did see any, but we talked about them all the time. Here's the lodge's owner talking a little bit about the status of wild tigers in this part of India.
60 years.
And do they know how many tigers are here?
Yeah. We have the DFO coming here. There is an official count and there's an unofficial count.
Yeah. How different are they?
You see, the forest department always claims that there are more tigers, but actually the civilians and other people and probably the WWF, they have their own this thing. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a
and so we're talking 5 pairs, 10 pairs, 20 animals?
Where?
In here.
Tigers. Tigers, about 53 tigers.
50?
53, yeah.
That's a realistic estimate.
Yeah. But we have, a couple of zones also, no?
Yes.
We crossed that Kishanpur zone when we entered. Remember I told you this is a forest that we are entering.
Yeah. And how many rhinos?
36 rhinos.
36.
Rhinos were reintroduced in 1984.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And are they all, almost everyone guarded individually? Or?
What they've done is that they've fenced a couple of square kilometers inside the forest.
Okay, yeah.
So that they don't come inside into the fields and all that.
Yeah.
But there is one tiger which is probably already, attacked a couple of rhinos. He's called Rhino Killer.
Yeah. And have you had any problem with poaching? Poaching for the rhinos?
No, no. The rhino is a very secured area. It's right in the heart of this forest,
Okay.
so nobody can actually go that far.
Okay.
And plus, there is a lot of monitoring. There are elephants who are constantly monitoring.
Yeah.
And how big is the forest?
The forest is almost 800 square kilometers. There are 3 different zones. So
In the evenings at Jaagir Lodge, we would sit around a fire outside and have a drink and eat some little finger food and talk about the day. And it was during these evenings that I took the chance to interview some of my fellow travelers on this trip to India. I'm standing here with David Lindo and Vanessa Palacios.
That's right.
And we have just experienced about a week of birding in India. It's my first time in India. I don't know about you guys, and you two are well-traveled folks, well-known. David, you're from London. Vanessa, you're from Extremadura in Spain. Tell me, just right off the cliff here, how was India for you guys? Let's start with you, Vanessa.
It's my first time in India, and I've never thought I was going to be able to come, to be honest. So it's great, and it's, having the opportunity to come is something good, something I didn't expect. And it's also another bird festival, another, scenery, nature resources, everything to explore. I think, during these few days I've received so many impacts, and still I've got to process all the information we're going through. But it's very different from other places I've visited. It's the first time I've flown so farther east in my life as well. India is a very, very special place in many ways, and before coming, we all have those images we see on TV, and some of this is, it's obviously what you see here, but some things you never know what you're going to expect, what you're going to see when you go to those places.
Any particular experience, Vanessa, that you've had here this week in India that sticks with you?
Many things. I mean, to me, when I travel around, it's mainly because of work.
Yeah.
So, I work for the tourist board in Extremadura. So, to me, everything is a learning. I learn a lot to all those, about all those places and from all the places I visit. And here, they have a bird festival, but also it's good to see how they manage tourism and how they're after that sustainability or that way of managing the natural resources they have. So I've got a few highlights, a few things to work on and to study and to compare with the place I come from in Spain, but also some of the places in the world.
Right. Well, David, you, my friend, are known the world over as the urban birder. What's been your impression of India as a destination?
It's been very interesting. I've come fresh off the back of being in Antarctica, literally the week before coming here.
Oh my gosh.
I was in Antarctica, so I went from ice to spice.
Right.
And
wait, there wasn't an ice Spice Girl, right? Was there?
Excuse me. And
no, but there was Curry Spice as a Spice Girl, wasn't there? No, there wasn't.
There should have been, though.
There should have been.
Should have been, yeah.
So no beeping horns in Antarctica.
No, actually. So
but a few beeping horns here in India.
I mean, I've been east before. Never been to India before, but I've been to Thailand and Taiwan and places like that. So I kind of had that sort of, got used to that sort of racket of noise and stuff that happens in cities in this part of the world. But India's been very interesting because it seems to be a country of contrasts even within the country, because with 1.2 billion people, you're going to have a different lot of personalities out there and different types of cultures within the actual country. So, I've learned a lot just being in this part, Uttar Pradesh. I learned a lot over the last few days in terms of how people are. But one thing that has struck me is how friendly people are. You're in the car or whatever, driving past, you wave at people and they wave back. And you feel totally safe here. It's really feels very safe here.
The people seem to be very, very peaceful, even though some of them are obviously living subsistence kind of existences, farming the fields out behind their house or nearby. And one thing I noticed that I wanted to ask you about was you sort of pride yourself on being someone who grew up in the city and you learned your birding in the city. You're the urban birder. You promote that to give a way of people, especially young people living in the city, to like tune into nature because it's there even though you're in the concrete jungle, as it were. And yet here in India, there's so many people, and there are birds everywhere. I mean, in some of the most populated segments that we've gone through on driving around here, you're seeing, Eurasian collar doves and black kites and some of the other birds. I mean, has that fired up your senses at all as someone who's been tuned into birds in the most populated of settings?
I think for me, urban birding is two things. Firstly is what you say, which is being in the middle of a metropolis or an urbanity or urban area, but also is a state of mind.
Yeah.
And wherever I go, it's the same thing for me, because I see cities as rural areas. Mm-hmm. So it works both ways for me. And
right.
I learnt about birding in urban areas. So when I go into rural areas, I'm seeing the same birds I actually see in urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes no real difference for me. It's more of a state of mind. And plus for me, it kind of gives me full circle in terms of my knowledge, because when I go back to an urban area, I know more about some of the species that I see in the city, because I've seen them in their alter ego outside of an urban area.
Right.
So it's interesting from that point of view. So when people say to me, "Oh, you've gone to Antarctica, or you're in the middle of a jungle right next to Nepal," what's that got to do with urban birding? Well, it's got a lot to do with urban birding, if you ask me, because it's the same field crafts that you're using, but you can still use that funk. You could bring the funk of urban birding into these areas.
Right. Any particular birds, David, that have stood out for you that you've come face to face with here in India?
There is one.
Okay.
And that bird, when I saw that bird, I could have left India on that moment, at that moment. It's a bird that I've been looking for all my life. It's only ever been recorded in Britain once in 1878 or something like that in Devon. It's a bird that I've been to Israel to look for, I've been to Thailand to look for, I've never been successful. And then I was standing by the Chambal River, and it flew, in fact, two of them flew past me, and I didn't expect it, and it was one of the most amazing feelings of elation ever. And that bird is called Pallas's gull, or the great black-headed gull.
Right.
It's a gull that, since I was a kid, with my first ever field guide that I stole from the local library, looked through that book and saw those species and saw that great black-headed gull, as it was called then, and thought, I'd love to see one of those.
Yeah.
And at last, I've waited all my life to see one, and I saw several
nice
at the Chambal River. So as far as I'm concerned, that's me done.
That's your palace in the sky right
exactly.
there. Exactly.
I'm easily pleased.
Oh, that's good, because we need more people that are easily pleased on this planet. Well, thank you both for talking to us here on This Birding Life, and it's been a pleasure traveling with you here in India. I hope we get to do this again. I'm going to come see you in Extremadura at some point. I'm going to come see you in England, or maybe even London. I want to go birding with you in London.
And I want to come to Ohio as well.
You got to. You got to. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Himanshu Jani.
And where are you from, Himanshu?
I am from Delhi,
okay.
Ancestrally from Gujarat.
Gujarat.
I went to a school called Rajkumar College, Rajkot, which was a school meant for the princes of the erstwhile state of Saurashtra.
Okay.
And my housemaster was a naturalist called Lav Kumar Khacher, who was one of the leading naturalists of the country.
Okay.
So Lav Kumar Saab used to take us on Sundays for picnics to the river.
Okay.
And he would point out the different birds.
And so that's how you got into bird watching?
And that's how we got into bird watching.
So was there a particular bird that you remember from those early years that really sparked your imagination? Or?
Well, I mean, there were two birds that were there at the RG Dam and the RG River at Rajkot, which was, one was the kingfisher, which was just a delightful bird to watch and easy to identify. Yep. And the other were the lapwings.
Colorful.
Yeah,
too,
and colorful. So
and the lapwings are noisy and
noisy. I mean, so as an 8-year-old, you can imagine, right? I mean, and for us at that point in time, it wasn't the bird watching; it was the picnic and the sandwiches and cycling out.
Right.
But you know, it kind of stays with you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then later on, when I married, and my wife is a very avid birder, so
already before you married her.
No, I mean, she was already.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
those are the best kind of women to find.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a meeting with the hearts. And
yes.
The mind and so on.
Now, have you been here to Dudhwa before?
Never.
Okay. So have you seen a tiger before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen tigers at Ghana. I've seen 11 different tigers in Ranthambore.
Wow.
11 different tigers in 3 safaris in Ranthambore.
Okay, so we'll be relying on you tomorrow to. Would you be willing to be strapped to the front of the vehicle as tiger bait? Because the tigers know you.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dudhwa tigers don't. The Ranthambore tigers did.
Right.
Because so my wife didn't accompany me then, and it was with Nick again, and I told him, I said, you show me a tiger and a case of beer for you.
There you go.
And the first 2 minutes we entered Ranthambore, and there was the tiger.
So you had to give him a case of beer.
I owed him 11 cases of beer.
That's enough to keep him for a week.
Yeah. but Bill, that was it.
No.
It was, hot as hell, summer. We sort of put our gamchas, the cloth that you put around your neck. We used to put them in the fridge.
Yeah.
Wet, put them in the fridge, take them out before you went for the safari.
So they cool you off. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And 3 safaris, a total of 11 different tigers.
Wow.
Can you beat that?
No, you can't. You can't beat that.
No, so the next year.
Hello, Bill. This is Jim. I am the publisher of Bloomsbury Natural History.
Jim what?
Jim Martin, sorry. Publisher of Bloomsbury Natural History. And today, as we were leaving Dudhwa Tiger Reserve, we chanced upon a party, a family group, presumably, of 5 great slaty woodpeckers, extremely scarce woodpecker, one that lots and lots and lots of birders want to see. I certainly have always wanted to see one. And they were jumping around, having fun, squawking at each other. And it was one of the greatest birding moments of my entire life. And tomorrow's your turn.
Yeah, I hope I get to see him. That's one of the birds that, flipping through the Indian Field Guide, I thought, oh, that's a weird one, because its head really looks very snake-like. It's this gray, dragon-like maybe. It's kind of a Game of Thrones bird. So did you strike them? Did it strike you as being kind of a snaky-looking woodpecker? Because it doesn't have a crest, but it's got this long neck.
It did. It looked a bit like a darter.
Okay, yeah.
Like a darter head.
Yeah.
Like a weird thing for a woodpecker.
Right.
I think it is an odd one, isn't it? It's in its own genus or something, but a beautiful and extraordinary and rare thing. And fantastic.
Did you have any luck today with tigers at all in the Tiger Reserve, or any other of the special animals there?
No.
But were you on the rhino trip?
Oh yes, sorry. No, we did. Yeah. Yeah. No.
It's a good thing you're not like a natural history editor or anything.
Truly hopeless. No, we saw 2 rhinos today. One in munching away on foliage beside the road, and one in a swamp with some deer.
Okay.
On an elephant trip. On the back of an elephant. I've never been on an elephant before.
So you were on the back of an elephant.
I was on the back of an elephant.
When you saw these rare Indian rhinos.
Yes, and I was clinging on for dear life. And there it was, the one-horned Indian rhinoceros. Wow. Amazing sight.
So would you recommend to people listening to come to India for birding if they've never been?
Oh God, oh yes. If you've never been and you can, you should, and you must.
So what are some of your big takeaway impressions of India?
Well, it's been very bird focused, obviously. So rather than just give a list of good birds, it's been fierce curries, fine beers, brilliant birds, and some very special birds that people think, sort of things that you never think you're never going to see. So like the woodpecker, the Sarus cranes. Yeah. I mean, for goodness sake, how can your heart not be lifted by the sight of 3 massive cranes flapping along lazily into the sunset, trumpeting away. Yeah. So extraordinary experiences galore.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you on this trip, Jim, and I hope we get to do stuff like this again. Maybe we'll see you over on our side of the pond at the expo this time.
I hope so. I look forward to it.
All right, thanks.
A pleasure.
And congrats on all your fine work with Bloomsbury. That's a fine publisher with the Helm guides and everything. I admire the work you do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I'm with Stephen Moss, who is a very well-known and very successful natural history author and producer of television content. And Stephen, welcome to This Birding Life, and thank you for all the wonderful content that you've put out there on the planet for people who are into birds and natural history.
That's very kind of you, Bill. I mean, obviously, it's lovely. As the producer, you always get the credit.
Yeah.
And I tend to take the credit because it's really nice. You know, people like you say, oh, that's great. But obviously, it is a team effort, more than anything. I write books, that's my effort, and other people have an input.
Right.
TV isn't like that at all. No individual person can ever take credit, so it's part of a fantastic team. And I was very privileged to work for many years at the BBC Natural History Unit in Bristol that you know, is the best place in the world to make these programmes.
So, you've had quite an interesting life, and we find ourselves here. We've met a few times at a few other birding events, but here we are in India, which is a place that you've come back to, and I thought we were going to hear the story tonight.
Yeah, I was going to tell it. You know, it's like you sit around the campfire and then you get talking about other things. Yeah, I came to India for the first and only time 31 years ago.
Yeah.
I was a young man. I just started work at the BBC. And I wanted to go abroad and watch birds. And I found this holiday and I saved up some money and I came here. And I was with an amazing leader called David Hunt, a British guy. And David one day, when we were at Corbett National Park, wandered off the path. He said at the time to photograph an owl that he'd seen flying off into the distance. And he got killed by a tiger.
And that's the story of how the actual tiger attack happened is quite unusual. Are you willing to?
It is, yeah. It happened. Well, we only found out when we got back. What happened was that that afternoon we went back up, or the next morning we went back up the hill and we recovered his binoculars and his camera. And the story I was told by my friend Bill Oddie, who's a great TV presenter in Britain, but also was David's best friend, was that when they developed the film, they saw shots of the tiger getting closer and closer and closer, and the final shot was basically the jaws of the tiger.
Right.
And he literally died taking his final photo.
Right.
And you wonder, you know, you look back and you think, did he know? He was a very intelligent guy. He'd been to India 7 times leading tours.
Right.
You know, he wasn't some rookie.
Right.
And you wonder if he must have known, and maybe he thought, well, I'll take photos because I've nothing else I can do. It's going to kill me anyway.
Right.
Or whether he just didn't realise it was that close, I don't know. The tiger had a cub or cubs at the time. We found out later. I don't think we were told they wanted to shoot it, and we said no, don't. He would have hated that. You know. And I don't think they did. But what they did do, someone asked me today, they said, when do you think they started making you stay in vehicles in tiger parks? I said, it was then. Because we walked everywhere.
Yeah.
And now you don't. You always go in vehicles.
The actual day that it happened, were you there when it happened?
I was walking on. It had been a long morning, and we were going back to the bus to get the bus back to the camp to have lunch.
Right.
And my stomach rules my life, you know. And I walked on ahead. I was the youngest person there. A lot of quite elderly people, and I got to the bus, and I heard the scream.
Wow.
But what was horrific about it was that when the scream came, it was literally cut off in mid-sound. It didn't die away.
Yeah.
And I knew what had happened. People said to me afterwards, you can't possibly have known. How could you have known?
Right.
I said, I knew. If he'd fallen off a cliff, you know, if he'd hurt himself, you would have heard the scream and it would have died away, or maybe you'd heard a second scream, you know. No, you know, he'd been got round the throat by the tiger.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and you know, it was a horrific thing, and it was very, you know, I suffered for not for very long, but when I was there, from what I suppose now you'd call post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, I felt terrible, and it was very shocking. I'd gone up the hill and we'd seen the tiger and we'd run away, and I thought I was going to die. You know, and it probably is the closest I've come to death. You know. So it was very traumatic, and we did, funnily enough, many years later, Bill Oddie, my colleague, went back there with colleagues of mine and made a film, and we dedicated it to David.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about David, actually, was he'd had this extraordinary life. He'd been in a jazz band in 1962 in Richmond in West London, and in his jazz band was Ray Davies of the Kinks, Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And when the Rolling Stones were starting up, Dave Hunt's band, as it was called, the Dave Hunt Band, had the gig, and it was bad weather, and they couldn't turn up, and the Rolling Stones stepped in. And that was the start of the Rolling Stones.
No way.
So he knew Mick Jagger, he knew them all. But he'd been a jazz musician at the worst time in history to be a jazz musician. Can you imagine? In the 50s, you'd have been a great success.
Right.
Probably by the 70s it was okay.
Yeah.
60s,
no,
you know,
not good.
Beatles, Stones came
Time
along,
out of, yeah.
that was it, you know.
Out of step.
And he'd gone off and he was always into birds, and he went off and he used to take bird tours around the Isles of Scilly, and he became one of the best. He was one of the best known birders in Britain.
Yeah.
An amazing guy. He was a lovely guy, and you know, it's a terrible tragedy. He was 51. He was younger than I am now when he died. You know, but he would have been the first to say, "You blooming idiot!" Actually, you know, we knew that.
Right.
That was the one thing everyone said. That he if one of us had done it,
right,
he would have had no sympathy.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, here you are all these years later, back in India for the first time. And what are your impressions?
I suppose I've travelled, you know, that was the first time I'd ever travelled anywhere apart from France. I think
Right.
I'd been to as a school kid, you know, so it blew my mind the first time. This time I'm much more used to it. I've been very fortunate with my job to have travelled the world.
Right.
I've been to all 7 continents. But India's still a bit of an assault on the senses. You know, the driving is extraordinary.
Yeah.
You just think, how can it work? They use the horn, not as a weapon like we do in the States or in Britain, but as a sort of piece of information.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm here. I'm
Right.
coming past you. Yeah, there's a car coming
It's a
in the
hand
opposite
on the
direction.
shoulder.
Yeah.
No.
Totally bizarre. So, you know, there's that. The people are very friendly. It's very friendly to us. I went to Sri Lanka 4 years ago. That's very different. It's equally friendly. It's a bit more organised. It's a bit less chaotic. But it's a lovely country and they're great people. Of course, Britain has such a strong connection with India historically, so it's fascinating. Yeah, and the English language and all that.
So this last week, any birds that stand out for you?
Oh, lots, yeah. Today was particularly great. You know, we saw a woodpecker that I was very excited by. It's called the Himalayan goldenback, but it used to be called the Himalayan golden-backed three-toed woodpecker, which is such a brilliant mouthful, isn't it?
Right.
That was new for me. We saw, let me get this right, I think chestnut-headed babbler, which sounds a very bizarre bird to anyone listening who maybe not as knowledgeable on Indian birds as they might be, you know, but was a very beautiful bird. Red-whiskered bulbul. I saw a hen harrier, which is a bird very special in Britain.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to see it here. I had to think for a moment. Oh, what are they found here? It's one of those birds that I think of as quintessentially linked with Scotland and the Highlands and the moors, and here it is across a marsh in India.
Yeah.
But yeah, some great birds.
Always a pleasure to cross paths with you, Stephen.
And you, Bill.
Want to wish you well with your future endeavors. You're now working toward a PhD, I understand, and
Yes.
teaching at a university, and
Yeah,
fantastic stuff.
I'm not doing TV anymore. I'm writing books, which is, as you know, much more civilised.
Well, of course.
Of course. And, you know, and doing a bit of radio and broadcast, which is
Right.
the loveliest thing, actually, to be able to chat to people like we are now, you know, is such a nice thing. And I really must come back to the States. I haven't been since I went to Cape May in the year 2000. I love the States. Oh, no, I have. I went to California. That's right. I did film in California.
That's not the States.
12 years ago. That's not the States,
No.
is it? That's somewhere else, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So I've been there. I've done Florida. I've done New Jersey.
You got to come to the big heartland.
Yeah.
We'll hook you
the
up
Midwest.
there. All
That
right.
would be good. I want to see some warblers.
You got it. Stephen, thank you so much.
A pleasure, Bill.
Bye-bye. As I mentioned in my introduction, India can be a sensory overload. I met many fellow travelers there who were returning to India for the umpteenth time because they simply couldn't get enough. While India may not be as easy to visit as, say, Disney World for the casual traveler, it is full of wonders and rewards that cannot be found elsewhere in the world. To learn more about the Uttar Pradesh Bird Festival and about travel to India in general, please visit upbirdfestival.in. My sincere thanks to Nikhil Devasar and the UP Bird Festival team, and to the Honorable Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Shri Akhilesh Yadav, for supporting this event and initiative. It's clear they are serious about promoting birding and conservation in India, as evidenced by the time, money, and effort that went into this event. Thanks to the host of This Birding Life, Birdwatchers Digest. One of life's simple pleasures is reading engaging stories and content on a topic that you love. If you love birds and birding, you owe it to yourself to try Birdwatchers Digest. Come birding with us at birdwatchersdigest.com. Our generous sponsors provide the financial support to make This Birding Life possible. Our lead sponsor is Carl Zeiss Sports Optics, makers of the legendary Victory SF binocular and the new Gavia spotting scope. Learn more about these fantastic products and Zeiss's commitment to the birding community at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Carl Zeiss, we make it visible. Support also comes from the American Birding Expo, the annual event that brings you the world of birding in one place. Make plans now to attend the 2017 Birding Expo in Philadelphia from September 29 to October 1, 2017. You can learn more about this unique event at birdingexpo.com. That's all for this episode of This Birding Life. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, this is Bill Thomspon III saying I'll see you out there with the birds. Laters.